Here recently, my inbox has been flooded with a question asked several different ways. But nonetheless, a lot of you guys are pretty much asking me the same exact question. And I think you know the answer to this, honestly. I think you just want me to validate what you already know. Steve, can you qualify or quantify these Philadelphia Eagles external signings in free agency? All right, y'all. Let's rip the Band-Aid off and let's talk about these external signings and what they are or are not. What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. As I stated, guys, to kind of open this video, I think a lot of you already know the answer to this question. You're just pretty much looking for me to kind of validate what your hunch, your instinct is already telling you. Which, I mean, come on, guys. We know what this is. These are calculated risk on signing younger guys. But basically, what I'm seeing is young men under the age of 28, so 28 or younger. Some of these guys will turn 28 before the season starts or by its completion, that have very complicated injury histories. You guys know this. I mean, it's very obvious that they're taking some very serious calculated risk with some of these signings. Now, with that said, I want to make this clear. That does not mean that I am opposed to what they are doing, okay? I think they're trying to get creative with bringing in an influx of talent for a certain dollar figure because you had to extend certain key pieces of your defense. Let's be honest, that's what happened. We had to extend a guy and give him a new contract, and we had to bring another guy back, re-sign that guy that took up some serious draft or some serious cash and capital against the cap. There's some obvious things going on here, guys. There's some very, very obvious things going on here. Now, some of this has to do with the fact that down the road, there's going to come a date where we're going to have to pay a very deserving Jalen Hurts a much awarded and needed and necessary contract. There's no doubt about that, guys. That is absolutely playing into the evaluation of what they're doing. With that said, what I will say right now, openly and honestly, at this Philadelphia Eagles team, if their NFL scouting department, okay, if that front office and their scouts nail these guys, there's two things at play here. Number one, it just speaks to how great our front office is. But number two, what must be talked about is, boy, our sports science department, our coaching staff, our approach to these things about how to basically prolong a player's career, how to take off some of the burden of the modern NFL on them, I think that's going to resonate very loudly with certain players, to be honest about this. I think it's going to, go back to 2020, guys, and just how miserable that experience was, for many reasons. But one thing we can't sleep on was the fact that we sustained a ton of injuries that absolutely decimated the roster. And since that time, with a new approach to practice, with these, buy-ins that we've had in the building for a while about our sports science department, we see a renaissance here in terms of player health and player outcomes and things like that. And I don't think that that's a small thing. Because let's talk for a second about Greedy Williams. What type of player is Greedy Williams? I think he's kind of the odd one out of the names that I'm going to name for you today. Right? He is a longer, taller corner. We've already discussed this, guys. I said that if I had to give you a comp, if you guys want to, I'll link the video at the end of this one. But athletically, the comp to Greedy Williams is Darius Slay. He's a little taller than Slay, but the athletic testing and the underlying measurements, they're similar. I mean, there's some similarity here with that. Let's fast forward to the safety we just signed yesterday, Justin Evans. This is a former second-round pick out of the University of Texas A&M, right? He was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and most recently played with the New Orleans Saints. This is a young man that started off his career basically playing, not starting his career, but started off in college at least playing as a strong safety. He's about 6 foot, 199 pounds. The guy has a 32-inch arm reach and a 76.5-inch wingspan. For a safety, he is very rangy. He's got, tremendous arm reach. He's got the ability to be disruptive. I could see why early on in his college career with the type of length that he had to play the position, they were probably trying to line him up against tight ends and against taller slot receivers because it makes sense. I mean, he could be disruptive in that way. In the league, though, he's kind of proven to be more versatile than what you would imagine because despite having those crazy measurables inside of the NFL, he's primarily played as a free safety to where they will use him in the box here and there as a strong, and he's played as a nickel. Most recently, guys, he played like 4 games to where he played extensive snaps as a nickelback for the New Orleans Saints. And then when injuries started to occur to their safety room, he started playing free safety for them. He's versatile. What is his underlying testing? A 4.6 40 with a 1.5 10 split, a 129-inch broad jump, and a 41.5-inch vertical. Yeah, there's clear injury concerns, guys. He missed 3 consecutive years for either injuries or really and honestly wasn't ready to play football again. That's a concern. That's a red flag. We know that. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. But you can't deny a 1.5 10 split with a 129-inch broad jump and a 41.5-inch vertical. Guys, that's a tremendous athletic profile. That is, when you look at the explosive traits, right? When you're looking at the 10 split, when you're looking at the broad jump, when you're looking at the vertical, guys, he tested up there. I mean, that's tremendous numbers. Now, there's some complexity here, right? He was the 57th graded, safety last season. I know safety is being used very, very crazy like here because he wasn't primarily just a safety, just like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Darius Slay, now we're talking about C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You see what I'm going here, guys. Just like him, he got used in this weird hybrid kind of role, to be quite honest. Remember, C.J. Gardner-Johnson even had to come down and play nickel for us for a little bit because of Avonte Maddox. So, on the season, he was 18 of 27 for a 66.7 completion rate. He had 1 forced incompletion for a 4% forced incompletion rate, 1 pass breakup, no interceptions. But his NFL passer rating was only 98.7, which ranked 56th among all safeties, all right? But what gets interesting to me is, and this is what made me go dig into his film and find out that he was playing some nickel corner and start digging deeper and deeper into advanced analytics. When you looked at his snaps per target, it was like 17.6, and I was like, dude, that is a lot of snaps per target. And that's like the side of when you're judging these guys, it's difficult to really evaluate. Because on one hand, you can just look at when they're targeted, how effective are they. Like, he's not, for a guy that's got 32-inch arm reach and a 76.5-inch wingspan, like, he's not as disruptive around the football as I would like to see in the underlying analytics, right? When you only have a 4% forced incompletion rate and a 1 pass breakup with that kind of, ranginess to your body, you would expect to see maybe a little more there. I mean, I don't think that he's the type of disruptive player that C.J. Gardner-Johnson has proven, but he has some of the underlying versatility you see there. Those athletic, testing traits, those are off the wall crazy, guys. He's a very, very good athlete with a very, very complicated injury history, to be quite honest. And like I said, you're comparing it like, okay, is it more important that teams are trying to avoid you when they're, when you're looking at these things? Because in 2018, like I said, he has 17.6 snaps per target number. But then when he starts playing the nickel corner position, it's 8.8. And that's what I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, something here doesn't make sense. Like, from 17.6 the last time you were in the NFL to 8.8 is a drastic difference, guys. More than double all of a sudden you're being targeted. So what happened? I started seeing that he played the nickel corner position. I'm like, well, who does that remind me of? Who else has those kind of weird underlying statistics? C.J. Gardner-Johnson does. Snaps per target for C.J. Gardner-Johnson was 9.9. This young man was 8.8. NFL passer rating giving up by C.J. Gardner-Johnson was 79.8. This young man's was 98.7. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, while he didn't force a lot of incompletions and he didn't have a high forced incompletion rate, he did have 6 interceptions. So he was way more productive around the ball, opportunistic, if you will. And that's something that, this young man, Justin Evans, if he's going to probably be more than a depth piece in Philadelphia, will have to illustrate. I'm not calling this guy C.J. Gardner-Johnson, guys. Don't get that twisted. I'm saying the versatility, the underlying versatility, underlying athletic traits are there. Let's fast forward, guys. Let's talk about our most recent signing, Nicolas Morrow. The first thing I want to clarify here and I want to clear up for the community is, as much as I wanted to tell you that he actually has experience playing with Sean Desai, it's not factually true, guys. Not from what I can see. I went through and I looked at the transaction wire, guys, and he was actually signed to the Bears on March 18th, 2022. So obviously that would have been post Sean Desai era. He had a weird injury on the 2021 season with his foot that kept him out for the year, put him on IR, and apparently he just never really got back in it again. So it does not appear to me as if he's ever really played with Sean Desai. So I wanted to say, like, oh, this is like another oddball one to where this is more of a coach's guy. I can't validate that, guys. From the information I see from the transaction wire would indicate that he's nothing to do with Sean Desai at all, other than he played at Chicago a year after Desai left. What I will say is who does this guy remind me of? Let me go over the measurables for you. This is what he clocked into the combine. This is not his current NFL weight, okay? This is what he clocked in at the combine. 6 foot, 216 pounds with a 32-inch arm reach and a 76.5-inch wingspan. Do you think he was actually a linebacker when he was coming out of college? Do you think that's what every NFL organization saw him as? Because they didn't. He originally came out as a strong safety. Who's that remind you of? How about Kaiser White? What did Kaiser White look like at the combine, guys? 6 foot, 216 pounds, a 31.63-inch arm reach, and a 76.75-inch wingspan. It's not hard to see some of these connections, right? Let's go over Nicolas Morrow's testing numbers. A 4.52 40 with a 1.66 10 split, a 2.63 20 split, a 123 broad jump, a 37-inch vertical, a 4.45 short shuttle, and a 7.08 3-cone drill. When I look at some of the explosive traits, like your 10 split and your broad jump and your vertical, he put up some really, really solid numbers, guys. A 1.66 10 split, 123-inch broad jump, and a 37-inch vertical, okay? So let's go ahead and let's take a look at Kaiser White's testing numbers. A 4.69 40, a 1.55 10 split, a 113-inch broad jump originally, but then he redid this at the combine, and guess what his number was? 122-inch broad jump at his pro day. I'm sorry. Combine, it was 113. Pro day, he came up with a 122. And then 35.5-inch of vertical. I would say that you can make an argument that Nicolas Morrow, they're both explosive athletes, but Nicolas Morrow might be a little bit more explosive of an athlete, judging by the underlying athletic traits here at the testing. With that said, the one area I do notice there's a subtle difference here is in the lateral movement drills, to where I do think Kaiser White tested a little better than Nicolas Morrow did. Nicolas Morrow had a 4.45 short shuttle, which is known as 20-yard shuttle, and then he had a 7.08 3-cone drill. In return, Kaiser White's numbers look like this. He had a 4.26 short shuttle, so a little faster, a little quicker, probably a little more efficient with his steps. And then he had a 6.96 3-cone number, so a little bit more fluid in the hips, a little easier changing those directions. I mean, to be fair here, this all comes down to the roles that you envision these guys playing. And, I don't think that you sign these type of guys. We're only really focused on the defense. We talked about Greedy. We talked about Nicolas Morrow. We talked about the new safety that we've signed, Justin Evans. So I don't think you look at these guys and you think to yourself like, oh, this is the Eagles' solution. This is their answer to what they're doing all around the board. But I do think they're getting creative here. I think they're getting creative in how they're trying to bring these guys in, right? I think if you look at it, there's some underlying athletic ability and some underlying, traits to Nicolas Morrow's game that remind you of Kaiser White. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Kaiser White in the system, but you can clearly see it when it's laid out in front of you, right? Then I get to take a look at a guy like Greedy Williams, and it's like, okay, like Greedy Williams he doesn't have the tape yet, guys. Let's make this real clear. Comparing this dude and saying he's Darius Slay, I'm not doing that, bro. I'm not doing that. I'm saying the underlying athletic traits are there in a taller but thinner frame compared to Darius Slay, but the underlying athletic numbers, they're very similar to Darius Slay's. And then I look at a guy like Justin Evans, and I do not think that this guy is, from the film, from the ability to play on the field, I do not think this is C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but he does give you some of the versatility of a C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Right, the ability to play as a nickel, the ability to play as over the top as a safety. He can play the post, he can play the box, he can do all those things for you. That's what they're doing here, guys. They're getting creative in this way. But you already know I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts? I can't tell you if this is going to work out, guys. I hope that this is followed up with some really, really good draft picks over the next 2 years. These are great kind of, under the radar. We know what they're trying to do here. This ain't hard to figure it out. We know what they're doing. How it'll work out, guys, I don't know. I guess we can talk about that around this time in 2024. We can talk about how well this worked out. All right, y'all, I appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next video.